digital citizenship, again, we're not only teaching our students how to work with technology, but also our parents. Just be as transparent as possible, keeping that information out in front of your students and your families, as well as your staff.
You're listening to the SmartSocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday shine online. Now, let's get back to the interview.
Hello, I'm Roland Hernandez. I'm Superintendent of Schools for the Corpus Christi Independent School District, which is located on the southern side of Texas on the coast. We have 34,000 students with 57 schools, serving students in pre-K age 3 through grade 12.
Hi, I'm Ty Ankrom, Superintendent of Pickaway County Educational Service Center in Circleville, Ohio. That's just south of Columbus. We have about 10,000 students across 4 school districts.
My name is Rick Surrency. I'm the elected superintendent of the Putnam County School District in Florida, located in the northeast corner of Florida, about 50 miles south of Jacksonville. We have 10,000 students and 13 schools.
In the age of one-to-one, how are you preparing students for positive technology use in the classroom?
Well, so we do make it a point to incorporate many ways to use technology. We talk about the blended learning approach, where we're trying to keep our students just as engaged with technology and instructional technology in school as they would be outside of school. It's a 24/7 connection. We really try to create different avenues in our school district to have the partnership with parents and the students with access to assignments, to curriculum, calendars of any sort, communication directly with their teachers. And I think that as we're preparing these students moving through the school system, that this is going to better prepare them as they move into their universities and colleges, even the military or workforce. And that's what this world is going to be more about, probably even more so when they reach that point.
I'm going to rely on the information that's been given to us by our curriculum directors and by our principals, because we have common meetings, job-related meetings throughout the county, and they're held monthly. But what I hear is that, before the pandemic, we really didn't know how to do this. And then within a weekend, we had to learn how to do it. And we did it kind of okay, but we're learning how to do it much better now. I'm still not convinced that it's the best way to educate people, but it is an option, and it's a way that can have a positive effect. But what they do is they tell the students, to take them home. If you have questions, they usually have a teacher that's on call, either in that moment or within an hour, and can answer questions. If it's not a teacher, it's an aide of some sort, a paraprofessional. So I think we've come a long way. I think there's still ways we can go by having, more readily available kinds of ways of doing it. In fact, one of the things we're looking at, and this doesn't really relate to the one-on-one, but kind of does, is that going back through the Cook Center, next fall, we're looking to try to get a contract with them for $45,000 as a pilot project for a whole county. They've done it for districts much larger than our county in terms of student attendance, but we'll have a parent coaching. So it can not only be about how to use their Chromebooks or the one-on-one kinds of things, but it could be for anything. Being as topics where we mentioned about how the Cook Center is helping us. So the parent or a caretaker can talk to the Cook Center, and within 24 hours, they'll have an answer either personally or they're pointing back to some kind of resource that will answer the questions.
We teach our students appropriate digital use and the impact of social media in certain different grade bands. And, again, there are certain things you would teach a 4th, 5th, or 6th grader that would be different than what you would teach to a high schooler. But I think it's really important that we are very intentional and we focus on, the proper use of technology. Let me add to that in addition to our digital citizenship, we actually, in our curriculum, our English language arts curriculum in our elementary grades, we actually use a unit where we actually theme technology and how it relates to society. I mean, that's actually part of our standards that we teach here in Florida. And this particular unit that they teach actually deepens the student's understanding over the course of 7 years. And the curriculum begins with a focus on the uses and the values associated with specific use of technology. So I think it's been very beneficial, and the state recognizes that is something in addition to our learning standards our students need to understand how technology relates to, how students learn. So we are very intentional on that and making sure that, we provide that basic understanding of how to use technology.
How have you been successful in increasing parent engagement to help keep students safe on social media?
Yes, that's a very good question. There again is just being partners with the parents when we do open houses and have parent nights, report card nights, parent teacher conferences. It's really communicating with them, not just in person, not just in phone calls and emails, but just different programs that we have within our school system, whether it be Canvas and the access to grades and again, attendance, is just keeping that in front of them. We also teach our parents through our parent liaisons, educating them on what digital literacy is, what the do's and don'ts are, so that they are prepared and equipped to deal with their students, their own children, but then understanding what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable in the area of technology as far as CCISD goes. And regardless, whether it's CCISD today or any school system in the future, they're pretty much going to run into those same parameters. And so I think just keeping them informed and educated is going to just help them better serve their children.
That's tough. Some parents don't care. I mean, some parents, they have their own life to live and they really don't care what their kids do. We all know that. That's unfortunate. My parents were great. I try to be a great parent. My wife and I did have, and I know my children are trying to be great parents, and they are great parents. And I'm sure that you also experience those kinds of things, Josh, but some parents just don't care. They have kids and they grow up and whatever happens, happens. And that's why we have the alternative school. But I think, one of the things we can do is continue to have regular meetings, probably not monthly, but regular meetings about having parents come in and learn how to help their students, help their children. And again, when you end up, you're preaching to the choir, but at least you make an impact on the ones who are there and give them some suggestions, and they can share their thoughts about how things work with other superintendents. And, we've had feedback that gives us, documentation that's all working well for them.
Sure. So the question is about engaging parents. And first of all, we've actually purchased some technology where we are actually allow parents to engage with schools in anytime they want to. And I won't necessarily say the name of the product, but it's a very engaging tool where teachers and parents can share information, and it's all very private and confidential, but it gives that access where parents can, have that conversation. They can look at the progress of the students, and it has really increased that communication. And we also use something that our student information system that we actually have an opportunity there where parents can go on there and monitor how their kids are doing attendance wise, grade wise, behavior wise. So it's just a way that they can stay up on what their child is doing on not only a day-to-day, but even an hour-by-hour basis. So it's an excellent communication tool.
Amazing. Are there any stories that come to mind about any social media incidents you've been able to get in front of or avoid by being proactive?
Unfortunately, there are many stories. As we can see what's taking place across our nation right now. Again, there are some positive uses of what technology is for in social media. But unfortunately, we also run into situations where you're having different kinds of threats being made to individuals or to certain schools or to certain school districts. The majority of the time, in fact, this year, every time, they've been hoaxes that are being played on school districts and campuses. We've dealt with those as recent as last week. And, what we have to do there is remember to remain calm, but then jump in front of it for our parents' sake and our students' sake. And a good example there would be not just something coming from the district level, but something that would come from that campus level, so that parents are receiving communication that we are aware of a report that's been made, perhaps on social media, that we've investigated, and there is nothing to justify that is actually happening. So through all of our social media, using it as a tool to keep our students informed, as well as our parents, and then even our local law enforcement and leaders in the community who definitely support our school system.
Personally not, but I can tell you that, again, I'll go back to my granddaughter who's not here. This is my personal experience I have. She's a member of a soccer team, and like me, she's white. But there was another girl who was white on the soccer team who pretended to be her on Instagram. and created a fake account and was using racial slurs. My granddaughter has friends of all races, and where she lives, they have all races. Here in Circleville, we're 92% white. But she came home upset, wouldn't go to school for a couple of days because people were slamming her. And finally, my son and daughter-in-law figured out what it was. They went to the school, and not proactive, but retroactive, they were able to get the situation resolved. But it always has its fallout. It still does.
Well, it's interesting. The social media can be very positive, but if we do not monitor that as a school district, it can also be a thorn in our side. And our communications department actually monitors social media on a regular basis. And if there are things on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever that are coming out about our district or about a specific incident in our school, then we immediately try to get ahead of that and address it before it turns into a bigger thing. Sometimes if something comes out about a certain incident at a school that kids are going to put it on Facebook, or parents might put something on Facebook even before the administrators know. So when we find out about that, we're on the phone, we're talking to our contacts at the schools. And if we need to go out and put out a message on our social media, or we need to take certain action to try to minimize that impact, then we do that. And there have been a number of incidents or cases. There might be some things where people are talking about it in the community about a certain problem that is coming up. For example, I've had a situation in a couple of years ago where a lot of parents were upset about a certain school, a certain rival that we were not going to play. It was not on our schedule. Okay. And I know that seems kind of minimal, but it's a big rivalry. So I actually had to get out front of that and actually have, contact our school. And this is another school in a different county. And we actually had a conversation to say, you know what, we need to reconsider this, because this is not just a football game. It's actually a community-wide event. It's a long-standing tradition. And especially being an elected superintendent, I have to be very aware of a lot of those community sentiments and make sure that we're really staying close to what's happening. And that was one incident that I think we got ahead of and really minimize the impact of that.
Yeah, that's great. What would your advice be to educators and administrators to work together to create a culture of digital safety and responsibility in their schools and community?
Yeah, I think that, digital citizenship, again, we're not only teaching our students how to work with technology, but also our parents. Just be as transparent as possible, keeping that information out in front of your students and your families, as well as your staff. In CCISD, we have a data privacy and security resources website. It's free. They can get on there and just find extra ways to be very careful on these resources. Too many times, I think people might think that there's a cost to everything. And when districts are making it a point to provide them free to the public, they should be taken advantage of.
I have no new ideas, but I think, things I've read, things I've heard is that, continually get together, share what's working for them, come up with new ideas, and try to stay ahead of the curve, because social media is always changing. What's popular today won't be popular tomorrow. TikTok's going away. A lot of schools are now outlawing that because it belongs to China, and they're fearful what might happen there. So, if China can get inside your phone, who knows what's going to happen? Or any person who's malicious. Doesn't have to be China. It could be your neighbor. We all get friend requests that if you're on social media, if you're in Facebook, like us old people are. I got a friend request just yesterday from a person who I know has been my friend on Facebook for a long time. So I said, "Did you do this, Darlene?" She goes, "No," question mark, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. And she's at the airport getting ready to go see her son in Oregon. And so she's trying to figure out how to stop it. So, as she's boarding, I'm trying to give her instructions about what to do and report it to Facebook. So again, no new thoughts, Josh, but just trying to keep ahead of what's going on.
Well, I think the whole idea of creating that safety is understanding the dangers. The worst thing that can happen. And again, I think our young people are very vulnerable, because I think they are very susceptible to getting on sites and communicating with people who might be hacking in on their social media. And I think they don't make good decisions sometimes. And especially when it comes to things like sexting and a lot of the pornographic stuff, and even saying things to other students or other people online that can come back and be a problem later. And the thing that really scares me are kids making decisions about sharing information about themselves, whether it's pornographic or whether it's, social security numbers or whatever the case might be, sharing information that will be online forever. So we try to, again, through our instruction and just through conversations, we really try to make students and parents aware that these are real dangers. And these are things that are impacting people every single day. And I think we've all learned lessons on when you get a text or an email and there's a link there, don't open it, that type of thing. So, and actually our IT department here at the district really tries to educate our staff on going to some of those sites too, because as we know, with all the things going on now where people are hacking in and the ransomware and all that kind of stuff, there are school districts. We've had some here in Florida that have been compromised and have had to pay a lot of money because outside sources have gained access to that information or the resources, and they've had to pay money to be able to get it out. So it's a real danger, and we have to make people aware of that.
What are your 1 to 2 biggest social media concerns for the future?
I think the biggest concern is that, all the social media outlets are not owned by the districts. They're third party. They move very fast. And sometimes it's hard to stay out in front of different things. We have in our district, our size, and even districts smaller, we have our own communications department. They do an excellent job. They're the ones really trying to communicate with the media to let them know what's happening, what's accurate and real time, not any made up information out there. But, the fact that it's third party, the fact that you can't have it addressed immediately when there are things circulating that are rumor, which can create a lot of fear in students and community as well. So while there are some positives to social media and the technology, we just have to be realistic on the fact that we will run into those situations. And it's not a matter on if, it's a matter of when. Every district is going to come across that at some point or another. But regardless of size of school district, the biggest thing there is communication with your families and your employees.
I think, Chat GPT is something I really don't understand. I see what it does, and, I can be supportive of it as long as it's used appropriately. I have an iPhone, so if I'm texting a message, sometimes, it's intuitive and it puts the word down for me. If it's the right one, I'll choose it, and it kind of writes my words for me, my sentence for me. But, Chat GPT, I get this right in a minute. It's different than that. It's more intense. I guess intense is a word I use a lot, but it will allow more comprehensive kinds of answers. And again, I think we as individuals have to be smart to say, okay, that's what I'm trying to get at, or that's not what I'm trying to get at. AI is a whole new, it's something above my level of thinking, but I'm intrigued by it, and I think it has a lot of good potential. We just have to be able to structure it so it does benefit everyone.
Well, obviously, the 1 or 2 big concerns I have going forward, Chat GPT, which I know many people are talking about now, is something that's real. It's something that's on us. We have to be aware of. And I've heard somebody speak recently of hard trends. Okay. We have to look at the future, looking hard trends. Technology is a hard trend, which means it is here to stay. It's something that is proven. It's not something that's going to come and go. It is truly a hard trend. I believe Chat GPT and AI and that type of technology is going to be a hard trend. It's something we need to navigate. And just to say we're going to ban it and not allow it, I think we're being unrealistic. So I think we need to be able to understand how we're going to navigate that. And I know a lot of educators are concerned about Chat GPT being something that students can use to cheat or plagiarize. I understand that, but I think there are some ways that we can learn to navigate that. And I've used the analogy. I've been in education since the 70s. So I've seen a lot of change. I'm in my 45th year right now. I remember when calculators came out. Texas Instrument came out with a calculator, And I remember back then people were saying, we've got to ban those. We can't allow kids to use calculators. They need to be able to figure out how to do it on pencil and paper. Okay. I remember that like it was yesterday, but we've learned to incorporate that. And now we can't do without a calculator. I mean, it's on our devices and all that. So I think ChatGPT is going to be something that we're going to have to learn how to use responsibly. And I think that will be, very positive in the future. Another social media concern I have is just the prevalence of bad players in technology. I mean, there is so much positivity going on with technology, especially since the pandemic. I mean, we've had to learn how to navigate it. It has become something that allowed us to continue educating people, but we have to learn that it is not the end all in how to teach kids. And kids also need to, like you and I've been talking about, they have to learn how to use technology in a responsible and safe manner. And I think it is incumbent on us to continue to stay up on the trends, kind of those things happening, because there's apps coming out every day, and just make sure we are out front of that and make sure that we educate how we're going to navigate that and train our students and our staff. And like I said, technology is not going away, and it is changing faster than we can really comprehend it. So I think we as educators and society just need to be able to protect our students and make sure they use it responsibly.
Funding is difficult. What advice would you give to other districts to secure funding to create resources that parents need?
Funding, yes, continues to become a hotter topic every year. But again, I think that's where districts really have to take a close look as they're prioritizing and working through budgets, seeking grants of any kind that can help. What we have found in CCISD on several occasions is, while we're trying to be as efficient as we can and yet serve our community and employees the best way possible, is there's been some overlap. When we have programs in the district that we find out two of them could actually do the same exact thing, and you find that out over time, then you definitely need to eliminate one, focus on the other, and get really good at one thing instead of okay at many things. Same thing with programs. And so that's how we've really become more efficient, sticking to we know what works and not being the kind that changes every other year with let's try this time. I'm very intentional and strategic.
But for grants, we've been able to acquire a lot of grants, not just because of this most recent pandemic money that's come from Washington and from our state capital in Columbus, but we're looking at other kinds of grants that are available: local grants, national grants, regional grants. We border Appalachia, so in Ohio, there are a lot of different grants that go to Appalachia. Well, we don't quite qualify, but sometimes they'll say, okay, you're nearby enough, and some of our students come from a mile away from where the actual drawn line is of Appalachian. It's just by counties. It's not really by region or by poverty. So we're looking for ways to get more grant funding.
Well, funding, the question is about funding and how we can provide resources for parents and for our students. In Florida, for example, we used to have some categorical funding where that we could use every year to kind of sustain our technology. A lot of that funding is going away, and we're having to be creative as school districts to make sure that we have a funding source to be current, because technology, laptops only last so long. So we have to have a plan. But, a lot of times we have to be creative and look beyond just that normal funding coming from the state to make sure we provide opportunities for our kids. Case in point, our school district, actually, we write a lot of grants. Okay. We have an excellent grant writer. About 3 or 4 years ago, we wrote a grant where we actually purchased some teleconferencing equipment. And essentially what it did, Josh, is it allowed us to put large screen TVs in 3 or 4 of our classrooms in our high schools. Okay. We have 4 high schools, and we use this equipment to bring classes together. And especially now where we have problems finding teachers, we have leveraged this resource where a teacher in one school could teach his or her class face to face and teach another class in another school at the same exact time, just like they're sitting in the classroom. And there's microphones built into the ceiling. It's just like the 2 classes are right there together. And it's been a game changer for us. But again, my point is funding wise, we are able to write a grant to get that. We have an educational foundation. And if there are certain things that we need that we just don't have the means to do it, we ask for money from that foundation and they support us.
Thanks for listening to our SmartSocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. This was our District Talk segment where we interview school district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday launch into their future by shining online. This episode was brought to you by our SmartSocial.com IP program. It's called the Very Informed Parent Program, which helps you engage your students with teen-led video lessons. Stay one step ahead with our premium parent newsletter and discover hidden features on trending apps on teens' phones and our 54 plus live parent and student-friendly events every single year. You can click on the link below to chat with one of our team members if you want a free pass to our VIP program to support your community with our SmartSocial.com resources. And if you're a district leader who has a success story, we would love to feature you on a future episode. You can click the links below to reach out. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a great day.